Hey guys, it's Lewis from Recycle Bicycle Sales here. In today's video, we're going to talk about how to replace the threaded bottom bracket on your bicycle. The reason that I specify that we're doing a threaded bottom bracket in this video is because there's two main styles of bottom bracket. We've got threaded and we've got press fit. As the name would state on a threaded one, there is a thread that is threading into the frame, and as you tighten the threads, it's going to pull the bottom bracket in so that you've got the bearing on both sides, which allows the cranks to spin. With a press fit bottom bracket, it is, again, as the name would state, it is pressed and fitted into the frame. There's no thread that's pulling it in, you're just squeezing it into place. So they're the two types of bottom bracket, threaded and press fit. This is what threaded looks like on a frame, and this is what press fit looks like on a frame. So what tools are we actually going to need to take the bottom bracket out? Well, first step, we need to actually remove the cranks. So whatever tools that you need to take the cranks off. So this one is just a straightforward Shimano Holotech crank. So we're just going to use our 5mm Allen key and our Shimano crank tool. If you've got a SRAM crank, you might need an 8mm or a 10mm Allen key. There could be a few different tools here. Point being, you got to remove the crank set first. The next tool, this is where it might get confusing. We need the tool to remove and reinstall the bottom bracket. Since we're using a threaded bottom bracket, we're going to need some sort of tool that can tighten and can loosen the actual thread. There is an array of different tools that we can have here, and they're all going to be a little bit different. Maybe like this one's got lots of teeth. I don't know how many teeth that is, but lots. This one's got less, so it will suit a different style of bottom bracket. This one, they look like they're deeper. There's quite a few variables here, so I'm going to say this is the point where you want to jump on Google, search up what bike you have, search up what bottom bracket goes in the bike that you have, and then once you've worked that out, you can type in that bottom bracket on Google. What tool do I need to remove this bottom bracket? And hopefully your answer will be there. If it's a pretty straightforward Shimano bottom bracket, like you paid somewhere between maybe 50 and 100 bucks, chances are it's just going to be like a really straightforward tool that looks just like this. I should know what it's called. This is the Park Tool BBT-9. I don't even know what that means. I just know that this is like the most common one, I suppose. But this one that I have is all built into one item. It might be on yours that it might look just like this, and then you can put an Allen key in the end so you can tighten it. So if you're going out and buying one, it might look a little bit more like this rather than being attached to a big handle like this. Step one, let's remove the cranks. If you want a more in-depth video about how to actually do this, we've got one a little bit further back on our YouTube channel about how to remove and install Shimano cranks, which happens to be what this one is. But the long and short of it is there's a few bolts that we need to undo, and then a little plastic lip that we have to like flick open and undo the plastic cap. And then hopefully it should come pretty much straight out. All right, and now to remove the drive side crank, I'm just gonna put my hands behind the chainring and my thumbs on the frame, flick it off a little bit, and then I'm just gonna pedal forward so I can derail the chain, and then I should be able to pull it straight out. And here we have the bottom bracket in question. This is the part that we're gonna be removing, the silver part that's sitting on here, or the gray part, or whatever shade of gray you wanna call that. We're just gonna remove the bottom bracket from the frame now. We're pretty lucky here, and I would say that this is in most cases as well. There's actually an arrow that says tighten. So it's saying tighten that way, which for the mechanics at home that remember righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, if we look at this, it says lefty-tighty, righty-loosey, which is backwards. So this is one of those things you don't just want to jump in and quickly undo it. You want to stop, have a look, see if there's an arrow, because you might be tightening it when you're trying to loosen it. So this next step to actually remove it is, I'm gonna say it's pretty much as easy as you'd think. It just might be really tight. So it might take a little bit of persuasion to it, be able to actually undo it. But we're going to fit the tool onto there. I'm lucky that this one is one that's got a nice long bit of leverage. However, if I grabbed some of the other tools, like a random one here, that doesn't fit. So we've got to go through, try a few different tools. It'll be a little bit like Goldilocks. One's going to be too small, one's going to be too big, and one's going to be just right. This is the one for this bottom bracket that's just right. So I'm just going to fit the tool onto the bottom bracket, and I want to put it in an area that I'm able to push down on it. If I was maybe starting it like that, then I'd be pushing back and it kind of makes it a bit difficult. The whole bike's moving around. But if I'm able to push just straight down, I can kind of just let gravity do its thing. So again, this is backwards from what it would normally be, so it's righty-loosey. Be prepared, it might be pretty damn tight. There we go, and I felt it suddenly get loose. Cool, now that I've cracked one side, I'm just gonna jump across to the other side now. So in the same way that we did with the drive side, we were having a look for an arrow that said tighten. On this one, it says tighten, which is the correct way that a bolt would normally be, righty-tighty. So this one is just simply gonna be lefty-loosey. So same idea, I'll put the tool somewhere there. Got it. So that first step was just simply me trying to crack it loose. There's even a chance you might be able to undo the rest of it just with your fingers. If you can, great. If not a big deal. I don't think it really matters which side that you undo first. I happen to be standing on non-drive side, so I'm gonna undo that first. But I'm just gonna take it all the way out, place it in a safe area, and then same deal on the drive side. Now, sometimes there'll be a little plastic sleeve between the two. I'll show you what that looks like in just a sec. Congratulations, you've removed the bottom bracket. This is the little plastic sleeve I was talking about. It kind of just like squeezes into there on both sides of the bottom bracket. It's just this little like plastic sleeve that means that like water can't get in there. If this is like cracked and damaged, or if it's even just not there, kind of not really a big deal. I mean, some mechanics might say that it is, but I'm saying it's not really a big deal. I'm not saying just throw it in the bin, but if it's broken, don't cry about it. That's the little plastic sleeve. So that might still be sitting in there. So just quickly have a look in there with your eyes, and if it is, just take it out of the frame. While we've got the bottom bracket removed, this is a really good opportunity to just assess the situation. Maybe if you have a squat down and have a look at it, can you see if the threads look good? If you run your finger over the threads, hopefully you're not gonna prick yourself with a little like metal filing or something like that. Just a chance to sort of have a look, see if there's any dirt or sand in there. I would also recommend, especially if we're putting a brand new bottom bracket in, to clean it with a bit of like degreaser of some type with a dirty rag. It's probably gonna be pretty dirty, so just clean it all out because we're about to put a fresh component back in. So I'm just gonna try and clean some of the grease out of there. This one actually looks like it's in really good condition and probably didn't need to have a bottom bracket replaced, but it makes for a good video, so we'll go through it anyway. This is what the threaded bottom bracket on a frame looks like. We can see how there's a bunch of threads there. It goes quite deep into the frame. That's what our bottom bracket is going to slowly thread into. And the final thing that we're gonna need, and arguably the most important thing, is the new bottom bracket. Now, to find the bottom bracket, this might be the hard part. I would recommend searching up your bike on Google, you know, whatever bike it is, components. And somewhere in that long list of components, it talks about the handlebar, it talks about the seat that you've got, the wheels that it comes with. Hopefully it says what bottom bracket you have. What you'll find throughout this research is that they don't make it easy. There's about 1,000 different types of bottom bracket, but split into two families, threaded and press fit. So that's a pretty clear distinction. I have a box of bottom brackets here, and there are so many different types of bottom bracket here. So this might be one of those moments that you do need to sit down on Google for a little while, and you do want to get the right one because the wrong one just won't fit. Now we're up to the step that we're going to install our new bottom bracket. For the purpose of this video, the bike that I've grabbed off of the showroom floor is actually in amazing condition and doesn't need a new bottom bracket. So we've removed the bottom bracket and I'm just going to reinstall the same one. But if you're doing this at home and you're replacing the bottom bracket, this is where we'll get the new bottom bracket put in. When installing the new bottom bracket, once we've cleaned out the frame and hopefully the new bottom bracket is completely brand new, so it doesn't really matter, I'm gonna recommend putting a little bit of grease on the thread. Whether it's on the thread of the bottom bracket or on the thread of the frame, kind of doesn't really matter too much. Just make sure you've got a good sort of healthy amount of grease. So you can put it either straight onto the thread of the bottom bracket, or you could put it onto the thread of the frame, and it kind of doesn't really matter. Just make sure it's a nice generous amount. Now we're just gonna put it straight back in. Whenever we're tightening up any bolt, and I would say the same thing for pretty much anything on a bike, but especially such a fine thread like a bottom bracket, always start with your fingers. Don't use the tool straight away. So this is lefty tighty, which is just weird. And I just want to start the thread with my hand. If I was using a tool straight away and it was going in anything slightly off center, it would totally ruin possibly even just the frame, which is literally worst case scenario. So start with your fingers and then move across to using a tool later. So it's not completely tight, it's just tight with my fingers. And now I'm going to do the non-drive side as well. Again, just tightening it with my fingers, pretty much as far as I can go would be ideal. And it's starting to get pretty tight now. And now I can use the tool to really tighten everything fully into place. So once we're as far as we can go with just our fingers, now we're gonna use our tool to really just crank it in. Go pretty tight. I don't know what Newton meter recommendation pretty tight is, but pretty tight. Sweet, that's not going any tighter. Ready to go. And now we're ready to put the cranks back in. We're just going to chuck a little bit of grease on there just so that we can keep it nice and quiet and put it back in. I'm gonna skim over this step pretty quickly, but if you want a more in-depth video about how to remove and install your Shimano cranks, we've got a video a bit further back on our channel. I'll even put the link in the description so you can check it out as well. We're literally doing the opposite of what we did when we took it off, obviously, because now we're putting it back on. Congratulations, you've finished. You've removed and installed a new bottom bracket. Now would be a good chance to maybe run through the gears, especially the front derailleur. Make sure it still shifts properly from the small chainring up to the big chainring and then back down. Now that you've got a different bottom bracket in there that wasn't in there before, the spacing could be even just a millimeter different, which might mean that you need to adjust the derailleur by like a millimeter to sort of offset it. It might be totally fine, whatever. Now's a good chance to just double check. So just shift up and down on the front chainring, maybe do it quite aggressively. So literally try and make the chain fall off, because you'd rather the chain fall off while you're here in the work stand with all your tools rather than out on the side of the road. And I reckon that about sums it up. If you reckon there's anything that we've missed, or maybe you know something about bottom brackets that you think the people in the comments might like to know, let us know down below. Otherwise, I'm gonna say thanks for watching and we'll see you in the next video. See ya.